What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Justice for the series. And we are in part two of Justice for Our Voting Rights. And there's a lot going on in this country right now. And we could think of no better time than to have this conversation about what's happening than right now. So I'm honored to be here with my co-host, Kiandria Demone, and my good friend, Dante Carter. But we are here to have a conversation about justice for our voting rights. And as you know, the Tennessee Republicans passed a new congressional map that splits Memphis into and dismantles the state's only Democratic-leaning majority Black congressional district. And so we wanted to have a conversation with a person on the ground that is leading the charge, pushing back. So that's what we're going to have a conversation about in a few minutes. But for now, we're going to kick it off. Justice for the series.
What do you want?
Every headline fades. Every news cycle moves on. For the families, it never ends. And the fight for accountability continues. This is not about clicks. This is not about controversy. This is about the truth. The names that deserves justice. We are reopening and examining the files and the facts. Nothing more and nothing less. We're going to ask questions that people dare to ask. Because justice delayed does not mean justice denied.
Don't shoot!
Don't shoot! Can't fail me.
You don't get
This is Justice for.
So tonight's episode is about the state of our nation. It's not just about Tennessee. It's not just about Alabama. It's about what's happening in our country. This is a national warning about what happens when voting rights are weakened, Black communities are divided, and political power is withdrawn without the people being fully heard. And so I could think of no one better to bring into this conversation than an individual that's on the front lines here in the state of Tennessee. You've seen him. You've seen the fight that's been happening. Justin J. Pearson did not just call this a political lynching for shock value. He is naming the political violence that we are seeing through erasure. A lynching is historically about terror, control, and stripping Black people of power. A political lynching uses the law, maps, state power, and the procedure to attack Black representation. But in this moment, we wanted to make sure we centered the voices of the most affected, and I can think of no one better than Representative Justin J. Pearson to talk about what's happening in Tennessee. So we welcome him to Justice for the series so we can have this conversation about justice for our voting rights. Welcome, Representative Pearson. How are you doing today?
One, I am so immensely grateful for the opportunity to be here with you. And thank you for including me in this amazing and important conversation as it relates to the state of Black America and the consequences of what has happened with what they call cracking up of Memphis. It has been devastating. Our city has been broken, in essence, into three. For nearly 100 years, we've been one congressional district. But white supremacy and the neo-Confederacy that is rising in the South is having serious implications in our communities and across the South. We are looking at, honestly, as it relates to congressional representation, 12 to 20 seats going away. In the state house and the state senate, we're looking at nearly 200 seats going away. The consequences of that for Black participation politically is going to be devastating. When we talk about healthcare, when we talk about wages, when we talk about access to education, when we talk about the things that we know intimately impact our community's voice and the lack thereof, what they are trying to systematically do is deny us access to the very places in politics that would give us the chance to change that status quo. This is, in no uncertain terms, a true and living political lynching in the South. And for people who live down here, as we do, right? Like for people who live here, 50% of Black folks are in the South. This is not a place to be negated or written off and to just hope that what happens in New York or what happens in California or Massachusetts is somehow going to save us. If we do not invest in congressional races like this one in the South, if we do not invest in people and policies that we know are going to move justice forward, we are going to wake up as our ancestors have had to do, with fewer and fewer and fewer rights, with the Voting Rights Act, with the Civil Rights Act, with other initiatives and efforts that we have fought for and people have bled for and died for being taken away from us.
So let's kind of ground us in this moment, because you said a lot there, but historically we want to talk about how this all happened. And I know Kiandria wanted to jump in here, but I want you to kind of frame it for everybody, for those that don't know what's happening. And Kiandria, you had a question.
That was my question. I just wanted to, you took the words right out of my mouth. I want to make sure before we get really into the meat of it, I want us to put it in layman's terms, because I know a lot of people, you're an attorney, you're a representative, you're an advocate, I'm an activist. So we deal with these things every day. And we understand, you know what I mean? We understand the inner workings of what's going on. But if I'm just now jumping into this conversation, and this question is for you, Justin, if I'm just now jumping into this conversation, I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna affect me. You know what I mean? This is gonna affect me. I heard it's gonna hurt me. What would you tell me?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I can take a step back here. So over the last several decades, the Supreme Court of the United States has tried to take away people's access to voting and to electing representatives who look like them. There was a big case, Shelby County v. Holder, which made it so that southern states could pass laws without getting what's called pre-clearance, which means before, if a state in the South or the Confederacy passed a law, they had to get permission from a judge, right, in essence, to be able to do that. That was gutted in Shelby County v. Holder a few years ago. The affirmative action case said the Constitution is colorblind. And now most recently in the Supreme Court's Calais case, they're saying the court no longer has a responsibility to make sure that there are, in essence, not racist maps being passed in the South. There's no responsibility for having majority Black districts. And so stop coming to the court to make sure that you get fair representation. Immediately after, the states in the South were like, thank you for that, Supreme Court. Now let me take away Black representation.
Be as racist as possible.
Be as racist as humanly possible. And so in 3 days, they took away the only Black majority district in Memphis. Louisiana is seeking to take its Black majority districts. Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, they decided not to do it by just 5 votes, but they wanted to take away the only Black majority district they had, where Representative Jim Clyburn represents. And so this is why we are in this moment, which is a very cataclysmic moment for people who are pursuing justice and want for us to have access to the ballot. It's because they very quickly have said, let us do everything we can to take those Black folks' ability to elect Black representation away.
Gotcha.
And so, Dante, I know that you have been in this conversation and have been engaged in the voting rights space. What do you think is incumbent in this moment as we see what's happening in Tennessee?
Man, I think that just so much of what Representative Pearson is saying, so much of what you said. I mean, now is time for us to really organize. We need to be loud, but I think we also got to move in silence, right? And I think, Gerald and I were in this moment back in 2020 here in Georgia, when we first saw them start to, go after our voting rights with SB 202. And I think what humbles me so much in this moment, right, is many of us that are partaking in this conversation, all 4 of us, we are the first people in our families born with the right to vote. And a lot of people don't think about it like that, right? So many of those folks fought, and we were the first ones to come out our mother's womb with the right to vote. We didn't have to count jelly beans. We didn't have to do any of that, right? We got the right to vote. And when I look back and I think about what they had to fight for, I think about, my great-great-great-grandfather, Eli Washington, when he walked off of Mount Vernon and decided he was going to sue the Confederate Army and sue the federal government. They came out of these horrible conditions with the will to fight, with the will to say, I want my humanity back. I want my freedom back. And I think in this moment, that's where we have to be at. I think we have to be grounded in the understanding of what our ancestors had to do to get to this moment. And this isn't a moment we take lightly. It's it's difficult to see what's going on in Tennessee, and we know it's about to happen here in Georgia. And I
Yeah.
think that's why what's going on and what's going to happen this weekend in Montgomery is going to be so important, because we are going to need activists from across the South. And I say specifically across the South, because we are the ones that are going to be on the front lines of this, fighting, having our fist up in the air. But it's important for us to make sure that we're sitting down, having these strategy sessions with attorneys so that we have a clear path forward. And I think that clear path is what Attorney Griggs has been doing a lot of talk about, saying, hey, yeah, like they made some tough decisions, but these things haven't been completely gutted. And I think it's important for us, and I'm talking about that voting rights law, that we are armed with the understanding of, from a data perspective, what we need to have when we go to court so that we can get this stuff overturned back to our favor.
I'm so glad you said that, because Griggs has been saying something that I swear Griggs is the only person on the internet saying, like, it's not gutted, it's okay, we can still fight. And they have been tussling with Griggs. So they have been tussling with him up and down the internet. So I'm glad that you said that too, and you received that too, because Griggs has been telling us. And I think what it's about is, as you said, it's our will to fight. You know, once you lose the will to fight, you've lost. So I think it's important for us to continue to remind not just viewers or listeners, that remind ourselves, our audience, our people, that as long as we have the will to fight, we'll find a way to fight back, because we always have. Me and Griggs were just now talking about that before we started filming. Is that they always lose, right? Like, this is not new. None of this is new. None of it's new. It's new to us, but none of it's new. The strategies, the playbook, the people who are doing it aren't even new. They're just descendants of the old ones. And it never works. It never works. And we always prevail, but we have to keep that will to fight back. So I think it's so important that you said that.
Absolutely. And what I wanted to center us in this moment, and I think we all kind of saw it in real time happening in Tennessee, but we also saw the fight back. And I just want to be able to, for everybody to see that, and then for Representative Pearson to talk about what was going through his mind as this was happening.
Absolutely. So I think in Tennessee, what we're really fortunate is that we had amazing organizers, and we also had some elected officials who were willing to risk something. So you were there's a perfect image of the protest and the march right before we went into the Capitol. That's a city councilwoman. Those are some of the organizers with the Equity Alliance, Tennessee for All, Turk, an immigrant rights organization, Moms Demand Action, folks with the gun violence prevention movement, all together fighting and resisting the authoritarianism that we were experiencing, right? And I think the lesson is you've got to have both. You got to have people within the institution who are willing to do the job, ask the questions, but also willing to disrupt the status quo, not just accept it and say, well, my only job is to press no. No, you have the privilege of being on the floor. You have the privilege of being in the institution. You need to use that both as an advocate, both as a legislator, as an activist, and as somebody who is going to go to the nth degree to show America, to show your community back home that what we are fighting for is worth the sacrifice. Like, you know, today we lost all of our committees, right? We were kicked off of all of our committees by the Speaker of the House. Sacrifice. But it is worth it because this is the moment that we are in. And it's not going to come twice. We're not having another go at this fight to preserve a modicum of the Voting Rights Act. This is it. And so if you think your job as an elected official is just to vote and to send out a press release and to maybe talk for 3 minutes and give a statement, like, you are missing the moment entirely and completely. And simultaneously, we need strong organizers. And I'm just going to say this, God bless Black women. We had the most amazing Black women organizers in our state who pushed elected officials to show up differently, who told them the same things I'm saying, like, this is the time. And we had one elected official, Senator Charlene Oliver, who literally stood on top of her desk holding a sign saying no Jim Crow 2.0. Ramesh Akbari was put together an opportunity for Stacey Abrams to come and testify. I said, hey, if Leader Abrams is going to be here, let's put together an entire rally and people's hearing. And so we put together a people's hearing in between the sessions We put together a people's hearing with Stacey Abrams, over 150 community members to testify about what was happening. And we started with Lift Every Voice and Sing. We heard all the people's testimony, and then Stacey Abrams was able to close it out. We have to have an expansive view of our power. And that's what you were saying. Our ancestors understood it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just one way. You have to fight on every single front persistently and consistently. And everybody's got a real role, not a pretentious role, I hope the activists show up. I hope the protesters fight back. You need to fight back. You need to show up in this moment, because this is a time period in our lives, I believe, and I'm sorry, I'm rambling here, but this is a time period in our lives that I really do believe people will look back on and ask us, what did we do? And our answer can't be we sat on our hands or we just got on our knees and prayed. And I'm all for praying. But the Bible that I read front to back, right? It's faith without works is dead. And we have to see some works in this moment, in this fight.
Absolutely. And I just applaud you and the activists for fighting back. And we all saw it in real time via the live stream. But thank you for giving us more of the back story of what was happening, because we didn't know about the people's convening, and we didn't know that Leader Abrams was there having that conversation with the people. So thank you for giving us that backstory, because I think many times in this era of social media, we don't get the backstory, what's happening in real time. There was one situation that we saw in real time happen, and we want to play a clip for that and then get your reaction in real time to what was happening.
Sure.
Fuck is wrong with you? The fuck is wrong with you? You stupid motherfucker.
And we were kind of talking about, bearing witness and being present. What was happening there, and what was going through your mind as you were being escorted out by the Tennessee State Troopers?
I mean, you got to know a couple of things. One, Cameron Sexton, who is known as the Ku Klux Cameron, he is always trying to exercise his power and overreach his power in the Tennessee State House of Representatives. Like, that's something, if you haven't been watching, if you didn't know, I got expelled from the legislature, right? If you didn't know that I have experienced having my badge cut off, right? Like, this man is a white supremacist, and he wants to silence Black voices and voices of dissent more than anything else in the world. He cleared the entire gallery because some people were hissing. He told all hundreds, maybe 150 people, they all had to leave. Now, we didn't know what was happening on the floor. I asked the leader of the party. I asked some other people what's going on. No one knew. And my brother, Allison and Lauren, who were there, engaged in an act of civil disobedience. They said, we weren't disrupting anything. We didn't make any noises. Like, we have a right to bear witness to what is happening right now. They were being told that they are being forced to leave. The speaker told them to leave, and they refused. And then I saw the troopers grabbing my brother, and I went up the stairs to the gallery. And I was saying, I'll walk him down. Like, he's fine. He doesn't need to be grabbed by troopers on his way down, walking down the steps. Neither of the white women, who are strong supporters of mine, neither of them had troopers carrying them. So why did my brother, who's 6'3", Black, dark skin, have two troopers carrying him out as if he's not going to go? He was walking in that direction. I was walking with him. And if you really listen and tune into the video, the supervisor says, let him walk, let him go with Rep. Pearson. And he says it much louder toward the end of the video, but this trooper was refusing and started to grab me in addition to my brother. And that's where that altercation ended up happening. But this is an intense moment. They were very, worrisome, and it was heightened tension, obviously, because they were taking away the only Black majority district in the entire state. But the reality is, he was disobeying an order from his own supervisor, and I wasn't going to have my brother being carted out and carried out by any state troopers. He can walk on his own 2 feet like anybody else.
No,
I have a question for you.
Understandable. Go ahead, Kiandria.
Sorry to cut you off, Griggs, but I want to hear, we've heard now your reaction to your explanation to what was happening, your reaction to the clip. But what I've wondered since I saw that, which, by the way, that's my first time seeing that unedited. And I want to know, how you felt right after. You know, you have those moments where you just act. You're passionate, you feel what you feel, you say what you say. And I've had those oh shit moments, like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. Oh my God, where is this gonna go? So I want to know how you remember feeling after, like immediately after.
Yeah, my only concern was for my brother and for my community members. I didn't know that was going to go viral and all those other things. I did call my wife, and I was like, there were some cameras there, just sort of kind of giving her a heads up that somebody might, take it out of context and it might be shared. I didn't know it would garner the attention that it did, and a lot of Black folk in particular, they make me smile with their comments and posts about the ancestors and all those types of things. But in that moment, my priority was to take care of my brother, take care of my community members who in this moment, right, engaged in an act of civil disobedience, which is so deeply connected to our lineage and our historicity, right? And so even now, right, as bad of an experience as it was, they were detained for 3 hours before being let go. We had to find attorneys and stuff like that. And what folks don't know is I gave a speech, right, on the House floor, which is on my Instagram and things like that, which you can go see. The second I finished that speech, put the mic down, I picked up the phone. I was talking to the attorney who was working to get my brother and our community members released. Right? Like these are the things you have to hold as a Black elected official fighting for justice that the world never knows. People don't understand. In that very heightened moment, it's like I'm giving a speech fighting for our district, fighting for the Voting Rights Act, fighting for our ancestors and our lineage, while simultaneously trying to protect my brother's right to engage his First Amendment right, which should be protected.
Yeah, and thank you for centering that, because I think many times in those moments, people don't understand what's actually happening in real time. Like we didn't know that you gave a speech while still being concerned about your brother and all those things that are happening, because it's kind of seen in a vacuum. Oh, there's the boy comment that went around the world. And let's be clear, yes, your ancestors were proud of you at that moment, because it's not every day that a Black man gets to say boy to a state trooper in the state capitol. I mean, that's historic in and of itself, but let alone be primarily concerned of the well-being of your family member just shows the heart and compassion that you have for this movement as well as for your family. So I'm glad that they were able to capture that, but also you were able to kind of give us the backstory. I do want to kind of jump in here with Dante, who's had a similar experience. I want him to ask you what question he has, because I know he was in the same type of situation a little bit earlier in Georgia. Go ahead, Dante.
I mean, my biggest thing is kind of, and I know you talked a lot about, what was going on through your mind, but, when I did it and got into this whole issue with some of the state patrol here in Georgia, there were a lot of things that I didn't even consider, right? Like who was going to pick up my 3-year-old daughter if I get locked up, who's going to call my wife. And so in this space that we're in terms of moving forward and organizing in a way where we can get the things done that we need to get done, what are some of the things that you would encourage people to do? Because there are going to be a lot of protests that are going to happen, because we got to move this needle. We don't know how long this thing is going to take, right? It could be a year, it could be 2 years, or we could be in a whole 15-year civil rights movement again. And so what would be some of the things that you would share with folks?
Well, I'll come with the belief that I have. We're in this for the next 50 years. It's going to take 50 years. And so everybody needs to buckle up and buckle in and realize that some of us are going to be much older and some of us are going to be going to glory when the fruits of our labor really are shown. And so what is about to happen over the next couple of months and couple of years here, particularly in the South, will have generational impacts. What this Supreme Court is doing is not going to be undone in a decade or two. We have to be locked into this, just as they have been locked into it for the last 50, 60 years, from Roe v. Wade, right? It's 50 years of their organizing and activism to now 60 years of cutting back the Voting Rights Act. Like, we have to prepare ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually for the fact that we'll see some wins along the way, but this isn't going to happen to us quickly, right? Or for us quickly. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what to do. And so I started asking some of the organizers and activists, like, okay, what happens? I asked a couple of attorneys, where is he going? One of our colleagues owns a bail company. He's like, well, if he needs to post bail. And I honestly, I didn't have a playbook ready for that. We were not anticipating folks were being arrested. But I do think that's part of what we need to figure out, Dante. It's like we need to have our playbook. Like, if you are arrested, here's what happens. Give your phone to this person. Expect this to happen next. You're going to, like, literally, you're going to be taken to this county jail. They're going to fingerprint you. They're going to get your information. They're going to tell you to take off your jewelry and all those things. You'll get a phone call. Make this person your point of contact if you are arrested. And we need to have that organizationally. Like, our point of contact is this person. For my brothers and everybody, it was me. And unfortunately, we were able to get a lawyer on the phone pretty quickly, just because of the urgency of the situation, and also privilege that I carry. I'm not going to say that didn't help, but we do need to get our tools ready, because this is going to happen a lot more. And to be honest with you, it needs to happen more. We have to, in essence, show the country and show people in the South that this is not a game.
Yeah.
This isn't, they're not just doing racist, performative, cosplaying politics. Like, this is actually happening. We saw the most significant reduction in Black political voting power in the United States Congress be eviscerated in 3 days.
Yeah.
Right? What took hundreds of years to build up to was gone in 3 days. We are going to see likely the purging, the most significant purging of Black elected officials since the end of Reconstruction in our lifetime here. And so we do need people. I mean, I'm going to Selma and Montgomery. We need to do that. But we need to be in these state houses in committee hearings, testifying and shouting. We need to be in these galleries, witnessing, and once the time comes, shouting and screaming there too. And our elected officials need to both speak and engage in their own acts of civil disobedience. What moment are you waiting for? If not the moment where they take the Voting Rights Act that was paid in blood and shredded in these state houses, what moment are you waiting to disrupt, if not this one?
And that brings me to a point that my mentor always talked about, and that's Representative John Lewis. And I think you had one of those moments as well. But he said, you know, there comes a time when you have to get in some good and necessary trouble. When you see something that's wrong, you have to say something. When you see something that's not right, you have to do something. And I want you to kind of help the audience to understand when I show you this photo, what was actually going on in your mind when the sergeant at arms appeared to be blocking your ability to go into the chamber. What is happening here? What's going in through your mind?
The Republican senator who was running this committee, I actually had walked into the room. And once I walked in, he said, if the protesters outdoors hit the walls again, then I'm going to shut this entire hearing down and I'm going to call the question. Stacey Abrams is there to testify. The NAACP is there to testify. Senator Oliver is asking questions. Senator Ackberry is asking questions. Senator Yarber, we got questions that we're trying to get on the record. And I knew we did not need the hearing to be shut down. So I walk outside and I tell everybody who's organized there, I love y'all. We appreciate you. But please, he said, it's over if you hit the walls again. And they all gave the thumbs up. And I was prepared to walk back inside when this sergeant at arms comes out and says, no representatives are being allowed in. No outsiders are being allowed into this hearing. I am a state representative. It was a Senate hearing room. And so they do have some discretion to do that, I guess. I was shocked because I had just been inside the room and now was being told you can't enter. And I looked him right there in that picture and I said, well, you and I are going to stand right here then. And I'll watch it from right here. And I ended up putting it on my phone and watching the hearing as it was happening. Because we are not, and you said this so well, we're not going to be denied, right? Okay, I can't be in the room. Well, I'll turn the video on and I'll stand right here. This is how white supremacy works, though. This is them trying to call us boy. You can have more power. You have more prestige. You can have the titles. You can have the influence, but they can weaponize their positions to try and box us in, to tell us where we do not belong. And that's what I think infuriates them the most about Black power, about Black political power. It is that we refuse to bow. We refuse to treat them as though they're some type of gods. And instead, we'll look them face to face, eyeball to eyeball, and declare our humanity in the face of that adversity.
Wow. So, kind of shifting gears, Memphis has now been redistricted and it's been cracked and packed. What does this mean for the Black residents of Memphis? And what do you see as the pathway moving forward to make sure their voice is not silenced?
Absolutely. We got to use it. We've got to use these voices. We got to use these bodies in ways that we haven't before. And I know people are tired. Folks are exhausted. You've been at this a long time, but this is another moment that requires your service. What Coretta Scott King said was true. Freedom is won in every generation. This is our time to fight for it. And I know some people, you got several kids or you got several jobs, and it is hard to make it. This economy has been rigged for billionaires, and we are suffering under the weight of oppression from healthcare costs, the lack of investment in public education and communities. And sometimes we even have people who are Democrats who sell us out, right? They get richer while we get poorer. I understand all of that. But in this moment, we cannot yield to the authoritarian impulses and actions of the people who are in positions of power. Instead, we've got to lean in like we've never leaned in before. For Memphians, they've just made 3 competitive districts. Before, they had 8 districts that were going to be Republican, and there was just 1 that was going to be Democratic. But now you've made it to where you probably got 6, more or less, that are going to lean more Republican, but you've made 3 competitive for Democrats to win because the margins aren't plus 50 Republican. And as we've seen in the midterms, a lot of people who are Republicans are disaffected with this administration, upset about this war with Iran. He lied about prices going down. Gas is taking up people's paycheck. Healthcare costs are still skyrocketing, and they've yet to see an increase in wages. And so a lot of people are disaffected and looking for where's the hope, where's the opportunity, where's the economic populist message that actually is going to meet the needs of me and my family who are still struggling day to day. And that's oftentimes found in the party that's fighting for working class people, which must be the Democratic Party. And so they really made some districts that otherwise would not be competitive, more competitive. So our district in District 9, where we're still running, is a competitive district where they're gonna have to work. We are already likely to increase turnout of Black voters, young voters, people who are moderates. We are already getting so much enthusiasm from counties I've never campaigned in. And so this is the momentum that they've generated by their racism is likely to propel us to the United States House of Representatives. That's where we're in right now because the hate and the vitriol and the vileness and the being derogatory, that's not putting no food on anybody's table. That's not lowering a single utility bill that these data centers are skyrocketing. And by meeting and addressing the needs of people, we have a significant chance to actually make this backfire on them.
I love that. And so I have to hop to a previous engagement, but I'm going to turn it over to my able co-host and my good friend, Representative Pearson. I really appreciate what you have said, especially that last part. I didn't even think about it that way, but I know that they will continue this conversation. Thank you for being on the platform.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Appreciate you, Griggs.
Thank you. So let's just jump right back in. So one of the things I heard you say, Rep. Justin, was that you're engaging more young people. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 31.
Because when I first saw pictures and videos of you, I'm like, you just have one of those faces. You look like a kid. But then I heard you talk, and I was like, okay, I heard him speak. So you sound seasoned, you sound educated, and you're a representative, obviously. So you're not a teenager, right? But I want to talk about how there are more younger people getting involved. It put me in the mind of the polling results I was looking at today in Georgia, right? We're in a primary in Georgia, and the numbers for people voting under early voting under 50 are abysmal. It was something like 8%. Like everybody was like 65 and up voting early. And as we know, voting early is imperative in this political climate because of all these shenanigans they pulled on election day, right? So I want you to talk a little bit about getting the younger generation involved, how you got involved, and if anybody's looking to engage younger voters in their area, if you have any advice or ideas on how they can do that.
Absolutely. So I got elected at 28 years old. I was the second youngest. I'm the second youngest member of the Tennessee House. Thank you, of Representatives, and it comes with some weight of responsibility. Right now, I'm 31. I'm looking for some 20-year-olds to run for office because we need younger people in positions of power. You can use and have, like one of my favorite songs says, the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Right? You can have younger people who do the town halls. I've had like a dozen town halls since August. People I'm running against in this race haven't had a single one, right? Like you have to have energy for this moment, for this fight, to be able to organize and galvanize people in ways that they haven't been before. For instance, I'll give you a couple ideas here. I have a young leaders group with 22 young folks who are under the age of 25 who are a part of our campaign. I trust them with phone banking. I trust them with canvassing. I trust them to show up as surrogates. I trust them with core functions of our race because I think that's the best way for them to garner the necessary energy and lessons that they need in order to one day take these positions and roles to run for office themselves. But we have to have a paradigm shift. Elected officials can't be in roles thinking, I'm going to be here until I die. Right? You can't be in position saying, I need to stay here until I'm situated myself enough to leave here and go make six figures at another company. As somebody told me, that was their advice. Don't be so radical so that you can make six figures when you leave here. That's kind of the thinking. We got to get a paradigm shift, which means we've got to get some new people. We've got to get some younger voices in there. But if you don't make them proximate to politics, they'll never engage until they're much older. And so we are intentional of going to high schools, talking to young people in public and going to where they are to go and say, hey, I went to a girls' basketball game at the college and met with all the Deltas, all the AKAs, all the Zetas, like all the Alphas, right? All the Qs. And I'm meeting everybody who's there, who I know is probably under the age of 22, just to say, look, I'm running for Congress. Here's what's important. If you care about wages, if you care about being able to one day own a home, which most people don't think they'll ever be able to do in their lifetime, right? If you care about those things, who you elect actually does matter. And that isn't to turn our picture or our vision away from our seniors and our elders who have invested so much into this world, into this country, that we don't turn our back on them, because we have to preserve Social Security. We have to protect Medicare. We have to make sure that they get the resources that they need for taking care of grandkids, which a lot of them are, right? Like there are policies that are really specific toward our elders that we need to protect and defend at all costs, while recognizing that the present reality and the future that is being crafted for people who are under the age of 40 is not a good one. We have a climate crisis, a gun violence epidemic, and the destruction of democracy that we are going to be dealing with for the next 50 years. And we need folks who can be in that fight for all, if not most of that time. And that's not going to be, the 77-year-old person at this point in time.
Dante, you're an advocate and an activist. Is there any advice that you can give or anything that you can add to that? Because you're on the ground, right? You're experiencing this. And
yeah, it's interesting. So, a lot of people know I ran for mayor in Sandy Springs, just north of Atlanta last year. It's a community that's changing from a demographic standpoint. And I'll never forget what one of my my seasoned sister said, where she was just like, man, the work that you and Griggs do on the ground is impactful, but my baby's got to see you before they have that first interaction with police. And so, that's where we started mobilizing in the elementary schools, right? Because that's where folks were saying was the greatest need. So we started, our little Super Dads program, and we're mentoring the boys every other weekend. So, every other week. So one Friday they'll see us doing the carpool. Next Friday they'll see us, bringing in politicians, bringing in all these different folks to have a real conversation with them. And people, the craziest thing is, and Representative Pearson, I know you see this, folks will say, man, the young folks don't know what's going on. They so dialed out, yada, yada, yada. I'm in there with a group of fifth graders, and the minute one of our state senators was talking about what he does, the young man raised his hand and said, well, I understand what you do, but why is it that my daddy has to pay all this extra money after he already bought our house, right? So he's already opening this conversation for property taxes. And the 10-year-old wants to know, where's this money going to, right? And so people see how we're being impacted by these things all over the place, but we've got to engage them in a way where they understand what is happening. And so that's why I'm really excited about having Representative Pearson here, because when the stuff with me and Representative Cannon went down at the Gold Dome, it was only a handful of us there, right? Some of the state reps came down and said, hey, they're about to vote on this bill. It's going to be really bad for our voting rights. And so it was a handful of us there. It's a ton of cameras. And of course, I was still learning a lot in this period. So, I grabbed my little poster and I ran down as some of the senators were walking in to make that vote. And I'm just like, hey, man, we ain't doing this. And again, this is that same period. We're talking about 2021 where I'm just learning. Like, I had never thought about the fact that I was the first person born in my family with the right to vote. And that's the part that just baffles me. Something they did in the 60s, like it literally took, 40 years before our community even felt the benefits of it. So back to Representative Pearson's point, it's like, man, if this is happening now, like, yes, this is a 50-year fight, because while we may not directly be impacted by some of this, my daughter is.
That's right.
She's 8, you know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at her, and it's like, my wife, she's an OB. She's telling me, folks are talking about Amber Thurman. She was like, listen, man, she was like, that's just the one name that got out. That's just the one that got out. It's a ton of women that are going through this. And so I just think, back to your point, we got to have real conversations about these things and making sure that we're putting them into the context that folks can understand. We all know that, the median reading level of folks in America is a 4th grade reading level. Well, if it's that way on the other side of the fence, what is it in our community, right? We got to just dumb this stuff down so folks understand, because I think we feel it in the community, but I don't know if we fully understand the fight that we walking into, right? Like the way that Thurgood understand it, to where he could be getting jacked up and thrown in the back of a trunk, and he's still showing up to court the next day like, y'all could kill me, but I'm still gonna fight for my people. But that's what is it? 10 red fire alarm that we at right now. Like, we need some people that are going to be bold enough to, hey, listen, you can come for my life, but I got to do this for the next generation. I got to do this for the kids, because that's where we are right now. And when I look at this stuff, I'm scared to death, because I didn't understand this. I started my career as a reporter, right? As a reporter, I didn't understand the legal side until I went into the DA's office. And I'm the youngest person to lead up their communications department. And I'm looking at these laws, and I had never seen it like this. I had never seen them applied. So now I'm looking at this and I'm like, nah, man, like we gotta do something. And so people were like, what got you advocated and activated? It was like seeing the system work, right? Seeing a district attorney going to the Gold Dome, advocating for legislation, not seeing that legislation pass, and him having to implement what he knew was bad law for our community. And it's like, whoa. But it took me being immersed in that to see it. And so if it took me being immersed in it, and I'm knowledgeable, right? Mm-hmm. My father-in-law marched with Dr. King, first Black veterinarian in the state of North Carolina. If I'm coming from this history of understanding civil rights, but I still don't understand how the system was working then, think about where our people really are. And that's what helps me to understand from an education perspective what we need to put out, from a context perspective what we need to put out. Because the fire alarm is going off right now. I just don't know
if it's making its way through our community the way it needs to.
That makes a lot of sense. Oh, go ahead, Justin. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. I think that's just so good, and it's so important because we have to make every conversation about politics and civics and government.
Mm.
Nothing else matters. Your favorite team, your favorite sport, your favorite college, your favorite athlete, none of it matters if you don't have rights in this country.
It's a trickle down effect for sure. It's absolutely a trickle down effect. There's one quote that I heard recently. You know, there are a lot of people that are like, I don't get into politics. I don't get into politics. And a quote that I heard was, if you don't get into politics, politics will get into you.
Yes.
And we are absolutely in a time right now to where it's even shaping pop culture. It's shaping the entertainment industry, as we can see. You know, it's just shaping everything around us. It's shaping the entire climate. So that I feel like this is a perfect segue to talk about what our day-to-day life looks like in this scenario, because I feel like a lot of people, myself included, you know, sometimes we can be a little bit removed from politics or news or even things that are impacting us in the government, and we have to ground ourselves and think about how they affect us. You know, like, this is a situation where it's not just, oh, this person who's going to represent me won't look like me, big whoop, right? No, this is whose schools get funded, whose roads get fixed, who gets resources, who gets priority, but everybody's still paying taxes. So if you don't mind, Rep Justin, walk us through, what does that look like? What does that look like if I'm in one of these districts and I've just been stripped of my voting power or it's been diluted? How is that going to affect me in my everyday life?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think you articulated it well. Having a congressperson who represents an area, in particular, a Black majority area, the issues of the community, the culture, the identity are what's raised to the top. Right now, we have a white congressperson. I was obviously running in the old District 9, and it looked like we were going to win, and we would have had a Black congressperson for the first time in 20 years. But it's the idea that you get to represent the vision and the values of that community. By not having that advocate, you do lose access to resources. Your community's voice on the national level does not get the necessary representation that it deserves. And so that's one of the losses. What does it mean as it relates to building power still? You still have a city council. You still have a county commission. You still have a mayor. We have 2 mayors. And so you can't say there's nothing we can do. The places where we still have influence, our sheriffs, our DAs, we need to use it in order to build the community that we want to, which is antithetical to what is happening in a lot of these state houses. And so that's kind of my message to people. It is you as a person, you need to know who's your city councilor, who's on your board of supervisors, who's your sheriff, who are your mayors. Like, this has to become our secondhand knowledge, because there's always someone who is responsible for what we are seeing. And most of the decisions that impact us, and I know it's kind of, I'm running for Congress, but most of the decisions that impact us are at that city level, at that county level, at that school board level.
So one of the things I want to know is, how does it impact my pockets, right? How does it impact me financially? Because like you said earlier, that matters a lot to people right now, right? How is that going to affect jobs or wages or the cost of living?
I mean, look at what's happening now. A war with Iran with no check from the folks who are in Congress to stop it, which has increased all of our prices at the pump and in grocery stores. Look at healthcare costs and the inability of bargaining for Medicare. So prices continue to skyrocket, and people are deciding between their utility bills and medicine. Look at data centers that are coming into communities without any permissions or authority. They're doing it with the support of the Environmental Protection Agency at the national level. And they're trying to make it easier for them to destroy our communities, not making it more challenging, more difficult. That impacts your air quality. That impacts your water quality and ability to live at all. There are so many decisions that are happening at the national level, particularly now with this unitarian government that we have that's all serving. You got a partisan Supreme Court serving the President of the United States. You got a House and a Senate serving the President of the United States. That all of these decisions and the people who are there are really changing what is happening in our day-to-day life in a way that we have not typically seen of the national government or the federal government.
That you just something just dawned on me that I personally, not to say these conversations aren't happening, but I haven't seen a lot of the conversation being shaped around this, because I know, we're focused on fighting, and how it's going to look long term if we don't give it the energy we need. But you said something about federal overreach, and I want to focus on that a little bit, because for me, that's a big deal that we often don't focus on until we're in a crisis, right? So what does this look like in the event of federal overreach, whether it's like the case of Jimmy Atchison in Atlanta, where a federal officer essentially executed an unarmed man without consequences, or if we have the situation in Minnesota where, Trump just, for whatever reason, for whatever reason, Trump just sometimes decide, I want to target this place. I'm fixated on this place and I want to occupy this place, whether it's ICE, whether it's XYZ. We've seen so many examples of federal overreach with these maps being redrawn and us losing representation. Can we talk a little bit about, from your professional opinion and experience, what does that look like in the event of federal overreach?
You just articulated it really well here. Federal overreach looks like the federal government doing things that it should not otherwise do without any recourse for states, which are on the receiving end of a lot of the evil things that are happening. And so this administration has killed American citizens with federal agencies, and none of them have been held accountable. Our city has been taken over in Memphis, has been taken over by federal agents in the Memphis Unsafe Task Force. And I just got notification that they killed someone today, the DEA, in Memphis, Tennessee, for no apparent reason other than this is what Donald Trump and his administration wants to do. We are in the crisis right now. And their ability to send the resources we don't need while denying us the resources that we do need perpetuates the very problems that they say they're trying to solve. And so they say Black criminality is the real problem, when in essence what they're saying is Black democracy, Black people being mayor, Black people being in the city council is the problem. And so let us infuse resources to about $1 million a day of federal agents to oversee those communities, right? But deny those same places violence intervention funding, deny those same places money for affordable housing, deny those same places an increase in resources for Medicaid and Medicare, and transfer wealth instead through the one big ugly bill, transfer wealth from the poorest Americans to the richest, to the tune of trillions, and then blame them for the poverty, blame them for the structural racism, blame them for the inequality, and then use the power of government, weaponize it to say that you have come up with the solution: more militarism for Black people. Right?
It's all circular. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That's what we're living in now. And I think the consequences of this will reverberate for generations to come.
So I mentioned earlier the cases that I personally have been following as an activist in Atlanta, but I know your city and your state has been affected as well. So I want to talk about specifically how you personally, as a Black man, as a representative, and just as a citizen, have been affected by, like, let's say, Tyree Nichols. Yeah. Because we can't overlook, there are so many victims. It's sad, and it's hard to keep up with them, and it's so sad. But that's one name that I know rings in Memphis.
Absolutely, absolutely. We talk about Mr. Tyree Nichols all the time, and I'm sorry, I know I only have a couple more minutes before I have to go here. But when we think about what happened to Mr. Tyree Nichols, 5 police officers beat him to death on my birthday, January 7, 2023. He died 3 days later. Today, 3 years later, his family has yet to receive any compensation for his death. Cases that should have been won were lost, and other cases that had guaranteed guilty verdict, at least some bit of justice for them through error of the judge, ended up being thrown out, and they're going to have to relitigate it. And so the trauma in the family, Mama Wells and Mr. Wells, and his beautiful sister and siblings, the trauma still remains. And I heard Dr. Bernice King say this once about her father. She says, "You all don't know how hard it is to live with a father who never dies." And for Mr. Tyree Nichols' family, he never you never really reached this point of grief that many of us have the privilege of reaching. Now that I think about it that way,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
it's consistently relitigated, reliving it for his loving parents and his siblings. And the racists don't go away, the bigots don't go away, the Blue Lives Matter people don't go away. And you have to deal with that, and they have to carry that weight consistently. And I was elected to office maybe a week after he was killed, and pushed forward legislation and tried to protect legislation that we passed at the local level to preserve his legacy in preventing these pretextual traffic stops that we know disproportionately impact Black people. And now what has happened since Trump has launched this unsafe task force? Pretextual traffic stops are back through the Tennessee Highway Patrol. 94% of people who are pulled over are Black and brown, despite the fact that 23% of the people in this city are white. Right? Like we're continually going backwards because of the decisions of this administration, and because white supremacy's influence and talons are built within it as well. And to take those out requires a recognition, and it requires work at every level of government, but inside and outside of the institutions too.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Go ahead, Dante.
I just want to ask you one quick question, Representative Pearson. Just in terms of a takeaway for some of our viewers, it seems like on the other side they always have another piece of ammunition in their gun, right? If one thing happens over here, they're already jotting at the next one. And what I was thinking of is from a local level, what are some of the things that we can do to support our local mayors, our local representatives, in terms of those efforts to push back on that federal overreach? Because there are local powers within the Constitution. And so what are some things that as concerned citizens and residents and advocates and activists that we can do to support the pushback that's needed in this moment?
I got you. That's such a good final question here, and I'm sorry that I have to leave y'all because I could hang out with y'all for a few more hours. But I'll say this: one thing that we all need to do is familial organizing. You need to make sure everybody in your family who is able to vote is registered to vote and that they go to vote. I love all the voter registration drives and the thousands of people registered. Check your family, your first cousins, your second cousins, your aunties, your uncles, your grandparents. Write their names down, put it in an Excel document, call all of them, check their addresses, make sure they know who their representatives are, and then make sure when early voting comes that they actually go to the polls. That's work all of us need to do.
Yeah.
Okay, that's first. Second, when it comes to your local officials, these jobs can be so isolating, quite frankly. It can feel really lonely. And in some of legislatures like ours, we only get one staff member. And so if you really want to help, volunteer. Volunteer to help in the district or to help in the Capitol, whether that be researching some things, helping to put on or host a town hall conversation virtually or in person. Like, you can do that. And so get a little bit more engaged. And then third, if you don't want to be that proximate, just show up. Sign up to be on that committee hearing and say, listen, I want to say something about that bill. Go to city council when it's time for public comment and say, look, I just want to say something about the state of the city. We pay for this. This is our government. This is our Constitution. These are our declarations of independence. They don't get to take this stuff away from us. And so the best thing to reclaim our power in this moment in time is to reclaim our power in this moment in time and put your hands on something that's tangible. God bless y'all. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
so
us.
much.
We appreciate you. We appreciate the work that you're doing.
We're doing it together. Let's keep fighting.
Yes.
So I'm hearing, as we wrap up here, my takeaway, and I want to hear your takeaway too. Oh, you can't hear me?
Hear you.
Okay, so we're just gonna wrap it out. I was saying we're just gonna wrap it out. So my takeaway is essentially that our leadership and our representatives locally at the state level are imperative to making sure that we are heard, to making sure that our needs are prioritized. And right now, as Black people, we are losing those representatives, but we are fighting back. I appreciate everyone for tuning in today. I appreciate my co-host Griggs. I appreciate Dante and Representative Justin Pearson from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm Kiandria Demone. Thank you guys for tuning in. Now, make sure you are subscribed so that you will get notifications for these episodes. We are living in such a crazy time right now. We are living in such a Griggs, get in
back.
there.
We back. We back.
I was just wrapping us out.
I'm ready. Go ahead. I'm
Oh,
listening.
I was saying we're in such a chaotic time right now, and our representatives at the state level are imperative to make sure we get what we need and that we are heard. And as Black people, we are actively losing them right now, but we can't lose the will to fight, and we have to stay focused.
Absolutely. And being that I'm back, I wanted to give y'all the marching orders. So I think what we have to recognize, especially in the state of Georgia or other places, is we still have the power. When I got ready to leave, and Representative Pearson was talking about now 3 competitive districts in Tennessee as opposed to 1, that's huge. And I think regardless of what happens in Alabama or what happens in Louisiana, if we start thinking outside the box and raise people's awareness, we will recognize that there are more competitive districts where we can have more of a say-so, even though we're still going to sue them. So I think that what we need to do in this moment is to come together and get ready to organize. Get ready to organize so we can mobilize. What I would strongly encourage everybody is on Saturday at 1 o'clock in Montgomery, Alabama, there will be a protest, rally, gathering. I'm asking everybody to do a couple things. One, like, comment, and share on this, but also share that all roads lead to the South, because it's important for us to be present at this historic moment when you start to see the coalition of the willing come together in this generation. I kept telling people it's going to be Freedom Summer, Freedom Summer. Well, Freedom Summer is here. And so you need to be a part of this. You need to be on the ground. The second thing, and Dante can attest to this, we went down to Savannah 2 weeks ago, and we went to the Ralph Mark Gilbert Civil Rights Museum. And in the Ralph Mark Gilbert Civil Rights Museum, they had this nice exhibit to what we need to bring back. And that nice exhibit was the mass meetings. We need to start having mass meetings so people can understand, 1, the strategy, 2, the effective keys to organizing, and 3, how to mobilize. Because we're not going to give you, and I know I'm not going to give you all the secrets on Al Gore's internet or Beyonce's internet. You need to be there in person so you can hear the strategy and that you can know how to be ready to mobilize at the drop of a dime. So we need to make sure that you are present at the mass meeting. So the first mass meeting is going to be in Montgomery on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Be in Montgomery Saturday at 1 o'clock for all roads lead to the South. So please join us for that. And then the last thing I'm going to leave y'all with, we can no longer sit back and say that voting rights are not under direct attack. We cannot sit back and say that white supremacy isn't running rampant. We've literally seen it running through these state houses. We've literally seen elected officials pretend that this is not happening, and it happens in real time. So now it's time to be what you said you would have been in the 60s. It's time for you to be about that action and not talk about the action. So I appreciate everybody that's giving their opinions. Bring your opinion to the mass meeting. See you in Alabama on Saturday.
I'm leaving.